Hello, my name is Emma. Today I'll be reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. Chapter 3, The Burrow. Run! Breathed Harry, creeping to the window and pushing it up so they could talk through the bars. Run, how did you? What the? Harry's mouth fell open as the full impact of what he was seeing had hit him. Ron was leaning out of the back window of an old turquoise car which was parked in mid-air. Grinning at Harry from the front seats were Fred and George, Ron's elder twin brothers. "All right, Harry, what's been going on?" said Ron. "Why haven't you been answering my letters? I've asked you to stay about 12 times. Then Dad came home and said you'd got an official warning for using magic in front of muggles. It wasn't me, and how did he know? He worked for the ministry," said Ron. "You know we're not supposed to do spells outside school." "Bit rich coming from you," said Harry, staring at the floating car. "Oh, this doesn't count," said Ron. "We're only borrowing it. It's Dad's. We didn't enchant it. But doing magic in front of those muggles you live in, I told you I didn't. But it'll take too long to explain now. Look, can you explain to them at Hogwarts that the Dursleys locked me up and won't let me come back? And obviously I can't magic myself out because the ministry will think that's the second spell I've done in 3 days. So stop gibbering," said Ron. "We've got to take you home with us. But you can't magic me out either." "We don't need to," said Ron, jerking his head towards the front seats and grinning. "You forgot who I got with me." "Tied that around the bars," said Fred, throwing the end of the rope to Harry. "If the Dursleys wake up, I'm dead," said Harry as he tied the rope around the bar and Fred revved the bar up the car. "Don't worry," said Fred, "and stand back." Harry moved back into the shadows next to Hedwig, who seemed to have realised how important this was and kept still and silent. So the car revved louder and louder, and suddenly, with a crunching noise, the bars were pulled clean out of the window, and Fred drove straight up in the air. Harry ran back to the window to see the bars dangling a few feet above the ground. Panting, Ron hoisted them up into the air. Harry listened anxiously, but there was no sound from the Dursleys' bedroom. When the bars were safely in the back seat with Ron, Fred reversed as close as possible to Harry's window. "But all my Hogwarts stuff, my wand, my broomstick, where is it?" "Locked in the cupboard under the stairs, and I can't get out of this room." "No problem," said George from the front passenger seat. "Out of the way, Harry." Fred and George climbed carefully through the window into Harry's room. "You had to hand it to them," thought Harry, as George took an ordinary hairpin from his pocket and started to pick the lock. "A lot of wizards think it's a waste of time knowing this sort of muggle trick," said Fred. "But we feel their skills worth learning, even if they're a bit slow." There was a small click and the door swung open. "So we'll get your trunks." Harry dashed around room, collecting his things together and passing them out of the window to Ron. Then he went to help Fred and George heave his trunk up the stairs. Harry heard Uncle Vernon cough. At last, panting, they reached the landing, then carried the trunk through Harry's room to the open window. Fred into the car to pull a Ron, and Harry and George pushed from the bedroom side. Inch by inch, the tread slid through the window. Harry and George threw their shoulders against the trunk and slid out of the window into the back seat of the car. Let's go! But as Harry climbed onto the windowsill, there came a loud screech from the owl behind him, and followed immediately by the thunder of Ron's voice. That ruddy owl! I've forgotten Hedwig. Harry tore back across the room. He snatched up Hedwig's cage, dashed up the window and passed it out to Ron. He was scrambling back onto the chest of drawers when Uncle Vernon hammered on the unlocked door. For a split second, Uncle Vernon framed in the doorway. Then he let out a bellow like an angry bull and dived at Harry, grabbing him by the ankle. Ron, Fred and George seized Harry's arms and pulled as hard as they could. Petunia! Roared Uncle Vernon. He's getting away! He's getting away! The Weasleys gave a gigantic tug and Harry's leg slid out of Uncle Vernon's grasp. As soon as Harry was in the car, had slammed the door shut, Ron yelled, "Put your foot down, Fred!" and the car shot suddenly towards the moon. Harry couldn't believe it. He was free. He ran down the window, the night air whipping his hair, and looked back at the shrinking rooftops of Privet Drive. Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia and Dudley were all hanging dumbstruck out of Harry's window. "See you next summer," Harry yelled. The Weasleys roared with laughter, and Harry settled back in his seat, grinning from ear to ear. "Let Hedwig out," he told Ron. "She can fly behind us." She hadn't had a chance to stretch her wings for ages. George handed a hairpin to Ron, and a moment later, Hedwig had soared joyfully out of the window to glide alongside them like a ghost. "So what's the story, Harry?" said Ron impatiently. "What's been happening?" Harry told them all about Dobby, the warning he'd given Harry, and the fiasco of the violet pudding. There's a long shocked silence when he had finished. "Very fishy," said Fred finally. "Definitely dodgy," agreed George. "So he won't even tell you who's supposed to be plotting all this stuff?" "I don't think he could," said Harry. "I told you, every time he got close to letting something slip, he started banging his head against the wall." You saw Fred and George looking at each other. "What, do you think he's lying? Well, put this way. I reckon old Dobby was sent to stop you coming back from Hogwarts. Someone's idea or joke. Can you think of anyone at school with a grudge against you?" "Yes," Harry and Ron together instantly. Draco Malfoy, Harry explained. He hates me. Draco Malfoy, said George, turning round. Not Lucius Malfoy's son. Must be. It's not a very common name, is it? Said Harry. I've heard Dad talking about him. He was a big supporter of you-know-who. And then when you-know-who disappeared, said Fred, craning around to look at Harry. Lucius Malfoy came back saying he'd never meant any of it. Load of dung. Dad reckons he's right inside of you-know-who's inner circle. Whoever owns him will be an old wizarding family, and they'll be rich, said Fred. Yeah, Mum's always wishing we had a house elf to do the ironing, but all we've got is a lousy old gal in the attic and nuns all over the garden. House elves come with big old manors and castles and places like that. You wouldn't catch one in our house. Harry was silent. Judging by the fact that Draco Malfoy usually had the best of everything. His family was rolling in wizard gold because he could see just Malfoy strutting around a large manor house. Sending the family servant to stop Harry from going back to Hogwarts sounded exactly like the sort of thing that Malfoy would do. Had Harry been so stupid to take Dobby seriously? I'm glad we came to get you anyway, said Ron. I was getting really worried when you didn't answer any of my letters. I thought it was an error at first. Who's error? Our owl. He's ancient. It won't be the first time he claps on a delivery. I thought it was Errol's fault at first. No, I said that. He claps on a delivery. So then they tried to borrow Hermione's, who the owl mum and dad bought Percy when he was made a prefect. Fred from the front. But Percy wouldn't lend him to me. Said one, saying he needed him. Percy's been acting very oddly this summer, said George, frowning, and he's been sending a lot of letters and spending a lot of time shut up in his room. I mean, there's only so many times you can polish a prefect badge. You're only so many times as you can. No, you're driving too far west, Fred, he added, pointing at a compass on the dashboard. Fred twiddled the steering wheel. So does your dad know you've got the car? Said Harry, guessing the answer. No. He had to work tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to get it back in the garage without Mum noticing we flew it. What does your dad do at the ministry anyway? He works at the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. It's all to do with bewitching things that a Muggle made, you know. Last year, some old witch died and her tea set. Last year, some old witch died and her tea set was sold to an antique shop. This Muggle woman bought it, took it home and tried to serve her friend tea with it. Dad was working overtime for weeks. What happened? The tea People went berserk and squirted boiling tea all over the place, and one man ended up in hospital with a sugar tongue clamped his nose. Dad was going frantic. It's only him and an old warlock called Perkins in the office, and they had to do memory charms and all sorts to cover it up. But your dad, this car. Fred laughed. Yeah, Dad's mad about everything to do with Mum. Our shit's full of muggle stuff. Takes it apart, puts spells on it, and puts it back together again. If he raided our house, he'd have to put himself straight under arrest. It drives Mummy mad. That's the main road, said George, peering down through the windscreen. We'll be there in 10 minutes, just as well. It's getting light. A faint pinkish glow is visible along the horizon to the east. Fred brought the car lower, and Harry saw a dark patchwork filled and clumped. 4 or 5 chimneys were perched on top of the roof. A lopsided sign stuck out in the ground near the entrance. Read the borough. Round the front door, a jumble of Wellington boots and a very rusty cauldron. Several fat brown chickens were pecking their way across the yard. It's not much, Dawn. It's brilliant, said Harry, happily thinking of Privet Drive. We got out the car. Now we'll go upstairs really quickly and wait for Mum to call us in the breakfast. Then you come running upstairs going, Mum, look who turned up in the night. She'll be all pleased to see Harry, and no one will ever need to go through the car. Right, come on, I sleep at the car. Mrs. Weasley was marched across the yard, stuffing chickens. Very short, kind-faced woman. It was remarkable how she looked like a saber tooth type. Ah, said Fred. Oh dear, said George. Mrs. Weasley came to a halt in front of them, her hands on her hips, staring from one guilty face to the next. She was wearing a flowered apron with one sticking out of the pocket. So, she said, Morning, Mum, said George in what he clearly thought was a jaunty, winning voice. Have you any idea how worried I've been? Said Mrs. Weasley in a deadly whisper. Sorry, Mum, but we see we had to. All 3 of them on Mrs. Weasley's son were taller than she was. But they cowered as her fridge broke over them. That's it! No, Cargon could have crashed out of my Milo bro. Did you care? Never, as long as I've lived. You wait until Father gets home. We never had trouble like this. From Bill or Charlie or Percy. Perfect Percy, muttered Fred. You could do with taking a leaf out of Percy's book, yelled Mrs. Weasley, putting a finger in Fred's chest. You could have died. You could have been seen. You could have lost your father's job. It seemed to go on for hours. Mrs. Weasley had shouted herself hoarse before she turned to Harry, who backed away. I'm very pleased to see you, Harry dear, she said. Come in and have some breakfast. She turned and walked back into the house, and Harry, after a nervous glance at Ron, nodded encouragingly and followed her. The kids looking rather small and cramped. There was a scrubbed wooden table and chest in the middle, and Harry sat down on the edge of his seat, looking around. He had never been a wizard house before. The clock on the wall opposite him had only one hand and no numbers at all. Written around the edges were things like time to make tea and like time to feed the chickens and you're late and mortal danger. Books were stacked 3 deep on the mantelpiece. Books with titles like Charm Your Own Cheese, Enchantment in Bacon, and 1 Minute Feats It's Magic. And unless Harry's ears were devising him, the radio next to the sink had just announced that the coming up was witching hour. The popular singing sorceress Celestina Warbeck. Mrs. Reese was scattering around cooking breakfast, a little helplessly throwing dirty looks at her sons as she threw sausages into the frying pan. Every now and then she muttered things like, "Don't know what you were thinking," and never would have believed it. Hope you enjoy it. Click here to subscribe.